Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to the Dear Love Podcast. You can catch us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Listen Notes, Podbean, Google Music, all that good stuff. You already know how this go. Let's get right into it. I'm so happy the playoffs have finally started in the NBA. I feel like I'm on the Golden State Warriors team. You know how you just go so long through a long season. And it's like, man, you finally make it to the stuff that actually matters. It's weird, though. Like, I remember when LeBron James first came into the league. And now you look and he's towards the end of his career. It's like that many seasons went by that quick. It's kind of like all of your school years. You always taught to cherish being a kid. I remember elementary school like it was yesterday. I remember preschool where we had like a little preschool prom thing. I will never forget. I wanted to go with this girl. I believe her name was Ashley. I had to be all of 2 or 3 or something, maybe 4. But I wanted to take her so bad. And my mom and my grandmother, everybody like, no, you're going to take your cousin. I'm like, man, what? Like, why would I take my cousin? It's kind of hard to remember, but I remember just crying. It's like, why can't I take who I want to take? Then, you go to elementary school, and now you in kindergarten. And I remember my teacher, Miss Miller. I'll never forget. She was a great teacher. But when you think back, it's like kindergarten is kind of like part 2 of daycare. You learn a few things. You kind of learn the ABCs, and it's like every single class has the ABCs that go all the way around the room. It's like, man, A is for apple, B is for bee, C is for cat, but A was always for apple, now that I think about it. Anyway, so, you go through kindergarten, and I remember the teachers asking for stuff like, oh, you got to have pens and pencils and glue and crayons, tissue. I want my shit back, man. Now that I'm thinking about it, man, I'm going to have to make a few calls because I know they ain't use all that damn tissue. I know I was only like 4 or 5, but I mean, I want my tissue back. Like, whatever happened to the tissue? Like, you get the tissue, you take it to class, everybody uses it. You looking at them like, nah, they using my box. You know what I'm saying? Like, where did the rest of it go? But those were some actual, like, crazy times, though. If you could really remember your childhood days as far as like kindergarten, especially if you have kids right now, if you look back at it, were you really that bad? Dear Love, episode 56. Now that I think about it, I was probably an asshole during my younger years. I always wanted attention in the classroom. But through all of these years of school, I think I only got suspended one time. And I think that one time was... Man, I don't even remember what that one time was for. But, getting suspended was kind of like going to jail when it came to school. Everybody come to class, you get the one guy who acts a fool and he gets sent to the office. And everybody like, oh, he ain't coming back. It's just a feeling, when you see your friend, like say his name is Donald, like Donald, go to the principal's office, and everybody got that little slight quiet tone to the room. We just... Ooh. And once he walks out that door, you never see him again. So then the next day of school, you get there, you see his chair is empty. And like, hey, what happened to Donald? They like, yeah, man. They gave my nigga 5, man. I'm like, what? Yeah, man, they gave him 5, man. What'd he do? They said he was cussing out the teacher or something, man. I don't know. So then after that week is up of you not seeing them, and they finally come back to class like, hey, why they didn't let my nigga out? Yeah, we were kids. I mean, what you expect? I mean, think about all of the things we made up when we were younger. My son the other day told me he was playing a game called, what do you say, Lava World or Lava Room or something. I said, how do you play that? He said, well, you got to not touch the floor. You see this rug right here? Like, you got to stand on that. And you got to jump from that and jump to the next room because, Daddy, where you standing right now is all of the lava. And I just said, oh, Okay, so that's the lava. Yeah, I would never understand. But then you got to think, we watch stuff like Toy Story, so we had to make up imaginary games and things to play also. But ours wasn't. No, I'm lying. Ours was probably just as crazy as that. It always involves something like standing on top of something and can't touch a certain part of the floor. We always played games like that. Or you got to stand up on the bed and try not to fall off, or try to wrestle or something. I remember games like Twister. Remember Twister when you had to put your arm on the red and leg on green? We just don't play those type of games no more. Or remember Don't Wake Daddy? Remember the game Life? I still play Life. Now I think Life is one of the doper games. Just like Clue. I love Clue. But niggas always cheating. Just like with Monopoly. Always cheating. So you gotta kinda fall back when it, come to Monopoly. But I definitely remember doing a lot of stuff as a kid, just making up games and just hoping everybody jumped in with me. And it's funny because now that we're the parents, we just look back and say, man, I can't even be mad at my kid because I was doing the same crazy shit. I was hiding behind the couch, acting like it was a horse and different stuff. So I mean, we all did it, but I think a lot of that imagination and playing around and hiding and all that, I think that's what ultimately led us to getting in trouble in school, because at a young age, again, you make up games, especially when you don't have nothing to do. So if you're not playing a game or watching some type of show on TV, you make up games. And honestly, a lot of the games are still made up from stuff that you see. So like House used to be a major thing. Hey, let's play House. And the way you play House, it was like somebody's the mom, somebody's the dad, or somebody's the kid. And you watch a lot of these things on TV, like your parents used to always watch the stories. So you would make up your own stories. And again, I feel this is how we started to get in trouble in the schools, because we don't turn off the imagination. We don't turn off the playtime. And I feel that's a big reason why my son stays in trouble. Now, he's not a bad kid, but again, when you going off of the adrenaline of you were just a soldier in the war and you running around the house with a hat on saying it's a helmet, I mean, what do you do when it comes down to making rules? So he goes to daycare and acts a fool. Well, hell, he still thinks he's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I mean, hey, you're going to tell him that he's not Leonardo? And once you tell him he's not Leonardo and he can't swing his swords around, he's upset. Just like any kid would be upset. I'm sure me coming up, I'm sure I wasn't the greatest kid when my imagination got turned off. You can't tell me to stop being creative. You can't tell me to be quiet. I'm in the middle of a big storm and I got my umbrella out and I'm walking around the house. What do you mean it's bedtime? Things like that. Like we really got to pay attention to that. Like turn off the imagination. It's kind of hard. And I actually encourage us to keep it on, because then you get the kids growing up to be great things and they think outside of the box. Can you imagine your kid not being creative in a sense or being outspoken? What if you had a kid that just come in every day, or at that age, they wake up in the morning, they just sit there and stare at you? You would probably be wondering like, oh, my kid don't like to play. He don't like to do anything. So it's times that I see my son in the room and, I ask, what you doing? And he say, oh, well, I'm watching Funny. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's one of them people who play like Roblox and stuff like that. So he say, Daddy, look at Granny. That's the Funny Granny right there. The little Granny game. I know it was like a mobile game. So I'm like, he's actually watching this. So then he'll say, oh, they killed him. And I'm like, hey, why do we even know that word? Like, why do we know what that means? But again, kids see so much stuff nowadays, the imagination just turns up. You know what I mean? So they get around other kids and, you starting to notice even younger kids could get with older kids and still have fun. It used to be stay in your age bracket. You know, if you're 4, you play with 4-year-olds at the highest, maybe 5 or 6. But now you got 4-year-olds playing with 9-year-olds and stuff like that because, hey, we in this same imagination box, I should say. So it's weird. You know, it's weird, but at the same time, it's interesting to just sit back and watch our kids grow up and do the things that we used to do, but with more technology and more outlets to see different things. So I just sit back and let them be a Ninja Turtle today and, hell, be a Lego tomorrow, I guess. Because he likes to draw these little Lego bodies. And he'll say, hey, Daddy, here go you. I'm like, that's not me. I need a couple more Legos. But he enjoys it. And again, you got to think of the imagination of kids, you know, building these things and putting things together and calling it something. Something to think about. And you know the younger generation is taking over the world because look at all of these damn movies they remaking. I mean, seriously, who would have thought to redo Child's Play? Now, again, we're going to think that's terrible because we grew up on the original Child's Play. But you got to reintroduce these things because, again, kids with these imaginations growing up, and then they say, hey, I remember this movie from the 80s or I remember this movie from the 70s. What if I added my own little twist to it? What if I added my own little spin? You know, what if Chucky had no hair? Or, you know, what if Chucky's outfit was red? And what if Andy was a girl instead of a guy? I mean, it's just so many things race through people's heads. And that's why, again, the creativity, I believe, starts as a youngin'. And you never could turn that switch off because you got to keep it going. Because can you imagine when you were a kid? Just think back when you were a kid, all the things you did. And your mom allowed you to do it or your dad allowed you to do it. You know, sports, whatever it was, watching certain TV shows. Hell, some of the shows we snuck and watch are the reason why we are so creative. And we build off each other and we build off of other people's creativity. But if we were stopped as kids, I don't feel like we'll ever be here. So I really think it starts when you're young. And that's why I went all the way back to kindergarten and how my feelings towards my parents when I couldn't take that girl to the preschool prom, even though I was 2 months and a half. I had to take my cousin, you know, but again, those feelings and those thoughts. So, you know, that's when I was a kid. So imagine how it is now with kids coming up. Just the thought process. The imagination switch. Got to keep it turned on. Dear Love, T. Shaw, I'm out of here.